All right, so let's get to the juicy stuff and let's start adding more advanced features to our Notion database. So the first thing we want to add is we want to add the outreach view, or we want to be able to basically automate when we have to outreach to certain people. So let's say you have a lead in your CRM. So you want to contact that lead over and over again because you are, negotiating with them. You want them to become your client. And so you basically keep track of when you last contacted the person. And then you want to know, when you have to reach out to them again, so that you don't forget it. And it's basically done for you. And that's something we can actually do with Notion. So let me show you how. Now to do that, we have to add a couple of additional properties to our database. And the first one is the last contact property. So this property is there to tell us when we last contacted each of the leads in our database. So you can choose a date here. And this is something you will have to fill in manually. So let me just choose a couple of dates here because that makes it easier. So let's go with this one. Let's go with that. Go with this. Go with that. And like this. Perfect. So now we have these last contact dates. They're completely arbitrary, but you will need to add those in order for this automation to work. Now, the next column is going to be the outreach overdue column. So this is going to be a Notion formula. And what we're going to do is we'll basically calculate if the time since the last contact, or if a certain time since the last contact has passed and we need to contact the client again. So let's say the last contact was 2 weeks ago and we want to contact the client every 2 weeks. Well, then we need to reach out to them again. And we can actually calculate this using Notion formulas. So let's get started with this. And it's actually not that complicated. So the formula isn't that complicated. And to do that, we'll use the date add function. Now, this function, as you see right here, gives us the option to add a certain number of days or weeks or minutes to a date that we give to this function. So what we'll do is we'll give this function our date. So this will be our last contact. And then we'll add a couple of days to it and then compare that to the current date. So let me show you what I mean. So in here, we'll use the prop to get one of the properties. And in our case, we want the last contact prop. So this one. And now we have to use a comma and we have to say the unit. So we have to say how much do we want to add to this date. And we want to add 14 and next another comma and then the unit. So we want to have days added. So you have to add these quotation marks around the days in order for this to work and then close the bracket. And now you actually see, if you look at the top here, it already does what we're expecting it to do. So it takes this date and then adds 14 days. So instead of the 4th of April, it's now the 18th of April. So it does exactly what we wanted to do. And now to finish this, we actually want to compare that to the current date. So we want to see, is this date still in the future or is it already in the past? And if it's in the past, that means that more than 14 days have passed since we last contacted our client. And therefore we need to contact them again. So maybe a bit hard to wrap your head around, but let me show you what I mean. So now we can use the now function here again, as I told you about earlier. And now it will actually switch this and turn this into a checkbox, so into a logical value instead of having a date value. And that's possible because we're now using this logical operator to basically say, is this true or false? And in this case, it would be false. And in these cases, it would be true. And you see our result makes sense because today is the 4th of April. And that means we don't have to reach out to our client again. So if we reach out today, we don't have to reach out to them again until 2 weeks from now. So this works just like we wanted to. And we can now use that to create a new view that utilizes this feature to filter for only these clients where this is actually true, so that we can only reach out to the clients that we need to reach out to. So we'll call this the outreach overdue board. And again, it will just be a list of all the clients we need to reach out to again. So call it outreach overdue and use the list view and then click on done. And what we do in here is we'll actually filter, and we will filter by this outreach overdue property. So you can actually filter by a formula value, which is really nice. And we want this to be checked. So we want this to be true, basically, so that it only shows those leads where we need to reach out to. And so now you could have a salesperson come in, and if they don't know what they should focus on, their work on, they can just go in here and see all the clients that haven't been contacted in a long time, and they can click into these clients and then contact them through the email address or through the phone number and so on. So let's build the next feature into our CRM tool. And this one is going to be the revenue tracker or the revenue prediction for the future based on the contract value that we expect from one of these projects. So how much revenue we'll make from one of these projects and when they will be expected to be closed or when the sale is going to happen in the future. So to do that, we'll need a couple of additional properties again, and we'll actually just minimize those a bit. You can actually do that like this. So you can just make these smaller, and this way we have a bit more space for us, and we don't need that much space for all these other properties. So we'll do it like that. And now let's add some more properties. So the first one is going to be a number, and this is going to be the estimated value of the project. And what we can actually do here is we can go into these number settings and we can turn this into a US dollar. So now every value in here will be considered a dollar value, basically. So let's just add some, arbitrary values like that maybe, and like this, like that, like this. And now we have some values in here. So it doesn't really matter what values you have in here. It's more for demonstrational purposes. And next we also need another date property, and this is going to be the expected close date. So this will be the date that you think you will be able to close this deal. So basically the deadline for closing this deal. And we need this as well in order to make predictions for the monthly revenue, because if a deal closes in 1 month, then that revenue will be counted towards that month, while if it closes the next month, the revenue will be counted towards the next month. And you see, this is quite an advanced use case, but it shows you how powerful Notion can really get if you use some tricks and you know your way around things like formulas and stuff like that. So again, here I'll just put in some random values. So maybe like this, 2 in April. Let's do 2 that will be closing in May. Also, I'll do one more in May. And let's maybe also do one in June. And that's it for this property as well. Now we'll actually use one of those tricks in order to make this work for us as well. And again, in this case, we'll use a formula to do this. And this is going to be just the month of this closing. So this property will give us back the month that a certain deal will be closed in, so that we can actually filter for this in our view to create this kind of like predictive revenue board. So we'll add the formula in here, and this is just way too much to type. So that's why I'm going to link this in the course resources below. So you'll find this below this video because it's just like, as you see, this huge chunk of text. But basically what we're doing is we're looking at the expected close date, and we're trying to get the value of the month. So basically, if it's 0, then it means that it's January and so on. It's a bit complicated to explain, but you can just copy paste that into your Notion workspace, into the formula field, and it should work just fine. So if you click on done, you see we now get the actual just text for the month. So if it's in April, we get April. If it's May, we get May. If it's June, we get June. And we can now use that to basically group our new view, which we're just going to create. The view is going to be called Revenue Dashboard or Revenue Prediction, maybe, totally up to you, like that. And it's going to be a board view again. Now, in this case, we will again adjust the grouping. So we'll not group by status, but instead we'll group by the month. And now you see that we get this month grouping in here just like we expect. We can remove this month because it's like just a no month category. And now we have these projects organized by the month that they will most likely close in. Now, the last thing that's missing here is that we actually need to calculate how much revenue this would add up to. And to use that, we can use the Notion database calculations again. So up here where it says 3, we're currently just counting the number of values here, the number of entries in every column. But what we can do is we can just change that to the sum of the estimated value. And now you see it updates, and we basically see how much revenue we'll make in each month if these closing dates are correct. So if we were to change some of this now, so if we were to change the closing dates, these numbers would change as well. So if I go back to table view, and let me just go over here, and maybe let's say this one doesn't close in April, but instead it closes in July maybe. So we'll add another month, and I now go back to the revenue prediction. You see this month gets added here, and basically now we see that this will now close in July, so we'll make this much revenue in July as well. And with that, we're finished with this project. Congratulations for finishing it. And if you want to check the solution that I have, you can again see that in the description down below. Now, obviously, you can extend this in many ways. And I just want to quickly show you a lot of features in a short amount of time. So there's obviously room to improve this as well. So your challenge might be to actually go in there and add some additional features. For example, what you could do is you could connect this CRM database to your client's database so that every client is connected to his projects in the CRM. And you could use that to do some really nice calculations. For example, you could try to calculate or sum up the total revenue you make from every client. So this is just as an idea for you to check out and to test your skills if you want to. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.